The Defiance Day of Prayer. Why is this event important to you?
My wife told me to do it. No, I mean, and I guess that should be as important as anything else, but really when I look down to it, or look, when I think about it, it's just an opportunity to be able to, get a group of believers together and allow them to have the opportunity to do one of the most powerful things that God gave us. And when I start to do it, think about some of the things that I just talked to people after the event was over with, and things that they were even sharing with me at that point in time. We so many times think that we're walking through this life by ourselves. With all the ways that we have to be connected, we still so many times carry a bunch of things that we don't need to. And to be able to release that, to be able to ask God for help, for direction, not only in our lives, but for the things that we can do better, and really just stop thinking that we're in control of everything, and to give Him the rightful place. But the people that put this on, and the people that we really look at that need help, that need people to pray for them, they're out there. There's plenty of hurt in the world, and if we can do any part to try to alleviate some of that, send people in the right direction, I mean, it's all well worthwhile.
One thing you mentioned in the room at the event that stood out to me was the importance of the employer being on board with praying and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's the evaluation of what your priorities are and how do they fit in, not only with your employer, with your employees, with the people that you walk through life with, co-workers, friends, family members. There's a lot of things there that we have to kind of continue to evaluate. Am I being the influence that I should be? Am I being influenced in a negative way? But I think that there's a lot of, when I look at it, a lot of times I say goal setting. There's other times where I say evaluation, but it's the same thing. It's an understanding and an evaluation of where you're at, where you want to be, and what steps do you need to take to be able to get there.
Racing's always been faith-friendly, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, anyhow. So when I sit there and I think about the differences in sports that I could be in, for whatever reason, I'm extremely thankful that racing has always had the faith-friendly aspect of it, and even to the point of the family aspect that I feel. And I think that in racing, there just has to be, in order for things to kind of continually go on, they have to have that family aspect, and really breaking it down to what's what are things that are truly important to the fan base. And I've had a lot of long-time friendships, and friendships that will last for a long time that came from racing. And even though I was in something that I felt like a career that took a lot of people maybe out of church on a Sunday, because they're following me racing. I also have been very thankful that almost I can't remember a race being in where they didn't have a prayer before it, where there wasn't something that was going, okay, maybe we're not all exactly where we might need to be at today, but we're at least going to be in reverence of what we've been allowed to do and what we're participating in.
Are you still looking for another racing opportunity?
I would say that more so I am open to it. I've came to the conclusion that after 10 to 15 years of being on the road, 250 days a year, at least, having so much of my time scheduled out for me, I find myself busier than I've ever been. And whether it's the days go by quicker or because I have 10, 7, and a 4-year-old, I don't know, but I know that those 3 kids are very, very important to me. And while I enjoy racing, it is something that it doesn't have to define who I am. It's part of who I am, but there's a lot of need for me and their lives at this point in time, and there's a lot of need for them in my life. So we're going to do the best that we can to be thankful and content in the things that we're given. And if it's not meant to be, we'll see what happens. The way that things kind of continue to evolve with racing is more of a playoff format. Therefore, until you get to the nitty gritty at the end of the year, they don't really necessarily need a guy like me. They might take a guy that's willing to pay some money so that they can go out and race. So we'll wait and see what happens. June's usually the earliest I get called for anything, and maybe maybe that might move continually closer to November. So try to do the best I can to stay in shape, to enjoy the time that I get, and if that happens, it'd be great. I know that there's a lot of people that are fans, and I appreciate them still continuing to follow me and what I'm doing. And that's one of the hardest things, is telling the fans that, I don't necessarily need to do that anymore. I'd like to, but I know that doesn't give them all the best feelings about it.
It sounds like you don't want to use the retired word.
Oh no, yeah, I wouldn't use the word retired, because I'll get into a race out in the parking lot if we get the right things going on. I might not be doing it professionally, but there's a part of me that will always have that same competitive fire, whether it's pushing the grocery cart around, running go-karts, or whatever it is. It may not be on the scale that it once was, but I enjoy the opportunities to be competitive, to drive fast, and as long as I'm not doing it on the road, I'll be doing okay.
We see sometimes drivers doing a one-off race with the Indianapolis 500. Would that be something, I know it's been a few years obviously, but would that be something you would entertain if the opportunity arose?
I would have to do some really careful thought with that, and definitely some praying about it, because anytime that I've thought about going back and running Indy cars, something bad has generally happened. I didn't consider myself to have a whole lot of friends when I was running Indy cars, because I didn't ever want to feel bad about beating somebody. Like if it was one of those things where, man, or if somebody was in an accident, and take my focus out of driving the race car. And the few couple of guys that I always felt kind of close to, that I had similar things, that personalities or got along with, a couple of them have died, and a couple of them have been hurt pretty bad. And I've hit my head enough times to know that I don't necessarily need that. So I try not to think about going and doing that too much. One of the nicest things about being a fan, first and foremost, of racing, is that now when I watch those races, I get to enjoy them like I did when I was a kid. There's no pressure, there's no, I'm stressed out, so I'm not going to be, as nice to my wife as I should be. I'm not going to be nice to my kids as I should be. It's just one of the things where I get the opportunity to enjoy it a little bit more than what I used to.
Are you watching more IndyCar, or are you still watching the stock cars?
I'm watching more dance than probably anything else, because my kids, I get the opportunity to go and support them in the things that they're trying to do. I watch what happens to be on. I've caught a couple IndyCar races this year. I've caught probably a few more NASCAR ones, just because it's been on more. I'm a race fan. If you have a figure 8 race on TV and I happen to be flipping through, I'll probably watch it.
How nice is it to live back in Northwest Ohio? I know you had a dance competition in Dayton you had to take your children to last week.
Well, I enjoy a lot being back here. We came back because most all of my family, and pretty much all of my wife's family, is from Northwest Ohio. Lots of our friends from not only high school, but in the years after that are here. It's funny how some of the priorities change, in that we're all growing, not only older, but up a little bit. We've got kids that are doing different things, and we're all kind of drug into, maybe different circles than what we were at one point in time. But as long as our priorities, in my opinion, are giving our kids the best leg up that we can for the future. Whether it's giving them, my goals for my kids is to be able to make them more confident than what I was at that time, to give them more character that I had, and to really, all in all, give them a little bit less to worry about. So when I look around and I see my friends, and they might not have as much time for me as they once have, and vice versa, I go, what we're doing now is we're investing the best that we can into what our kids are going to be able to do. And while we don't know what the future is, there's no better investment that we can have at this point in time than to try to give them a leg up. So we'll do our things, and when we get an opportunity to get together in the future, we'll make the most of it to the best of our ability.
So your kids are in school full time. What is Sam Hornish Jr. doing during the day in addition to probably running errands as a father?
I've never been busier. I've never got up earlier than what I have been, between trying to stay in shape, because I went from a job where I had probably in the neighborhood of 12 to 12 hours of cardio a week. At 170 beats per minute, being in the race car, like you just can't match that. I get to be like the jack of many trades. Like I get to help my dad out one day with certain things. I get to help my wife out. I get to. I've led a Bible study that I've definitely felt a lot of purpose to be able to help, and part of my being a race car driver, my platform has allowed me to to get people in and through the door, and ultimately it's up to God to help to lead them the direction that they need to go. But man, I might be on a tractor one day, I might have the suit and tie on the next day. I've been able to have, probably in the last 3 weeks, I've spoke at least 4 times, from everything from junior and senior high kids, to men's ministry, to at Defiance College, to today at the National Day of Prayer. And I was telling Bruce, I said, when you're a professional athlete, like there's times when there's games, there's times when there's races, there's these things, like you almost have an excuse to be able to say no for certain things.
Sure, right.
Now you have a lot less excuses. They're like, well, you're not racing, you got plenty of time to come and talk.
If this is it for you at a highly visible racing level, what's the one thing you want fans to remember about what you were able to contribute in your way to racing? I think that for racing, I've felt like perseverance has been one of the biggest things that I've been able to do. I was fully prepared to not be a race car driver anymore by the time I was 20, because my career looked like it was over when I was 21. It looked like it was over when I was 18. It looked like it was over when I was 28. It looked like it was So I've fortunately, in my opinion, I've always been ready to step into that next portion of my life. I'm real close with Will Power on who's got the best win percentage, but that's nothing to hang my hat on. I've won the Indianapolis 500. I've won 3 IndyCar championships. I've won races on the NASCAR side. But I think as far as community goes, I think that there's more than likely probably more for me left to do now than what there ever has been, as far as ways that I can do things. And I love being from Northwest Ohio. I like the community aspect of it. I was born in Bryan, grew up in Stryker, lived most of my life in Defiance, live in Napoleon, graduated from Archbold. I mean, my kids go to school in Monclova. It's just like you've got all these ties to different parts of Defiance, and I've felt like I've been supported no matter where I've been at. So I've always been very thankful for that, and I hope to, at some way, shape, or form, be able to do the best that I can to pay back for those things. Now the race begins to get healthy and ride bike to the bay, right?
Yeah. To at least be able to do it. I don't know how things will work out. I guess maybe I'm not giving enough credit there, but I feel like there's still challenges for sure that I've got the opportunity to take part in, and to use a little bit of celebrity I have to hopefully to help people out, to not only make myself better, but hopefully to make parts of my community better as well.